Are you a little overwhelmed, feeling isolated, angry, frustrated, unacknowledged, or fearful? Do you find yourself wanting to retreat from the world? Then it's time to break down the barriers and say yes to yourself. Join me, Christine Clark, on Forging a Life to spark the ignition and put your life into drive. We'll cover how to ignite full circle success on your terms. You can forge through. Every episode, I share a life-forging tip to spark your liberated, energized, and profoundly satisfying life. It has never been a question of, do you have what it takes? It is only, are you willing to try? Forging a Life is about you and our world. As each of us forge our unique destiny, we light the way for others, igniting world-healing transformation. Step into the work and make an effort. Trust yourself and the process of becoming. Forging a Life starts now. Do you ever wonder if what you're doing is enough? Does it feel like no matter how much you put forth, you can't see results? Are you like so many of us with an idealized version of the impact you want to make? And then in the trenches, doing the work, there's no feedback loop. You can't see the ripple effect of your input. Not sure if your activities are moving you forward, growing your business, making a difference. I guarantee you are not alone. I'm Christine Clark, and this is Forging a Life. Having passion for what you do is essential for full circle success. Putting your heart into your business is a risk. Bumps along the way can cause heartache. And yet, with your heart in the game, you fuel the process with energy and passion. You open the door to triumphs. Today, my beautiful guest, Dwana Bradley, and I are deep diving into the process of living in significance while building a business. Dwana, welcome to the show. I am delighted to have you here with me.
Thank you, Christine. Happy to be with you today.
Yeah, I am excited. I want to just kind of give people some background. So tell me a little bit about the Iowa Urban Media, the Experience magazine. Just kind of tell us what you do.
Yeah, so what I do is a lot, but we'll start with Iowa Urban Media, which is a publication, a media company that we really focus on educating individuals, empowering them, uplifting the community. We have the Urban Experience magazine, which is a monthly publication that comes out. I do a little podcast, This Is Not My Show, talking to community members and just, everyday people doing some amazing things within our community. And so it really just kind of came from an accident. We didn't really start out as a media company. We started as a nonprofit, but I know we'll get more into that. But really, that's the basis of what Iowa Urban Media does. We really tell the stories of others, and we educate individuals here in our community.
Beautiful. And I know that you kind of got pushed into this by your father.
Yeah, I did. So at the time, there was a little tragedy going on within my family, and it was about December 2014. My father, who has some publishing experience, had Communicator newspaper years ago. I remember being 8 and walking in, and he was cranking the printing press to put things out. So he had not done that for years, became a pastor. And so as life goes, gave up a lot of things. But then he was asking me, he said, we really don't have a magazine here. And I had been really frustrated with the way mainstream media kind of portrayed people of color and kind of seeing those same continual stories where we would pop up. And so he was challenging me to do something about it, and was you can complain, or are we going to do something? And I'm like, we can do something, but I'm super busy right now. Single mom, teaching full time. It was just at a time that really wasn't convenient. Didn't want to go back to school to be a journalist because I had figured I was going to go the education route, right? I was going to be a principal, superintendent, all of that fun stuff I was going to be able to do. And so we mulled around with it, and I was just I guess I'm normally that kid that just says yes. I'm like, yeah, I guess we can do this. And we mulled with names. We actually started it as a nonprofit, the Des Moines Urban Experience. we came up with our first publication on for Valentine's Day, actually February. We did a special love issue and highlighting Black couples within our community, and we've been going strong monthly since February of 2015.
2015. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember because you were a teacher, you were working full time. Dad
Yes.
comes and says, "Hey, let's do this." And I had my own experience moving from full time to entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
I jumped off the corporate ladder. I was an underwriter for an insurance company here in Des Moines, Iowa. And a couple of things were, you know, I was working 12-hour plus days.
Mm-hmm.
I had the business suit. I wore the heels. I carried the briefcase, looked very professional, worked my butt off. But because I was on a salary, when you broke down the number of hours I was putting in, I could have had a fast food service job, right?
Right. Right.
And it was stressful.
Yeah.
And I kept at it. But when my husband and I had our first son, when he
Mm-hmm.
came into the world, everything changed for me. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't want somebody else raising my kid. And
Mm-hmm.
that was the catalyst for me to just say, hey, I've got this side hustle as in direct sales that I've been doing for
Right.
almost a year. And my husband's business was going well enough. I thought, I I want to make this change. And so that I jumped off the corporate ladder, did it cold turkey,
Mm-hmm.
did not build my personal business to replace my salary in any way, shape, or form. I
Yeah.
just knew I needed out. And since then, we have made it work.
Mm-hmm.
We have swum, we have treaded water, we have had highs and lows, but we have made it and
Yes.
been able to pay all our bills and be present with our first son and our second son. And
Right.
so for you working full time, what was it that was your catalyst or come to Jesus conversation what made you jump off and go solo entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so we started the magazine. Things are going well. I'm teaching in school, loving my job, by the way. Love, there's nothing greater than a teacher in my mind. So love the job that I was doing, raising both of my kids at the time. And as I'm going through the motions, about 9 months later, we get custodianship of Juneteenth. And I know we'll delve into that a little later, but I had received this nonprofit thing that I was still holding the nonprofit to do. I found myself starting to be at work, really focusing on the two entities that I had. And as I'm sitting there at work, I'm thinking, being a teacher and being a mother, I don't know if I'd like it if a teacher that I entrusted to teach my children were constantly focusing on something else. So I ended up taking some time off because my son needed to have surgery. And I remember this so clearly. It was in April of 2016. And I was sitting at home caring for him. He was sleeping. And so as you get to know me, I'm really strong in my faith. I have a lot of conversations with God. And I really started kind of sitting there and I'm just like, Lord, what do you want me to do? And it was just a clear, it's time. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, it's time maybe to go check on my son. It's time to do something different. But the stronger that it's time got, I knew that it was time for me to leave the teaching profession. And people who know me, my heart bleeds for education. I think it's the greatest thing that we have in this world is to be educated. And so it was a struggle, but I'm similar to you with just being a single parent. I literally jumped out the boat. I took my leap of faith. I went back to work after taking care of my son. I put in my resignation. I was done teaching as of June of 2016 and only had a little bit of income to get me through. I had no health insurance. I went for about a couple months without it. I've got my two kids. I'm not getting the bills paid. And, we made this tough decision to go back and live with my parents. But literally that faith walk, I'm not telling everyone to take it because it's not for everyone, okay? But it really was what I felt God was telling me to do. And I've not turned back since I took that leap of faith in 2016. And honestly, it's been the best thing I've ever done.
That is beautiful. Thank you, Dwana. I love that, because any kind of entrepreneurship is a leap of faith. I mean, it just is.
It
And
is.
to figure out all the pieces. That moving back in with parents, I mean, there's some stigma around that, as adults, right? I remember in college, we used to laugh that, we're not going to date any guy if he's living with his parents. Um, you don't want to do that. But to meet the realities of what was needed to create stability and not give up the entrepreneurship, not give up what was obviously on your heart and in your mind because it was there, it was
Yeah.
focused, while you were still working.
Mhm.
So tell me about some of the serendipities or the positive things that came out of making that move because there had to be a little bit of a ego or I don't know, for me it would have been, I guess you tell your story about what that decision was to move back in with mom and dad.
Oh yeah, it was a huge thing. Mind you, I was in a relationship back then with someone that I'm currently not with anymore, but I was, you're going through the motions. You feel like you've arrived. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm a single mama taking care of two kids. I'm providing. We've got health insurance. I've got a good paying job. We've got a nice 3-bedroom apartment. Like everything is great. And then, God is like telling me it's time and I'm thinking, but like this has to be some kind of cruel joke because like I've done everything to get us to a better place and now you're asking me to take this leap of faith where in my mind it was going backwards and I kid you not, I cried. I remember sitting in my apartment crying about I'm in my mid 30s, I've got 2 children, I'm by myself and I'm going back home to live with my parents. Like that was
So
crushing
yeah,
for me,
right,
completely crushing. But you know what? I had to finally get to a point. I think we all, for those who identify with faith, are allowed to kind of mull in that. You're allowed to. You're a human being. You're allowed to feel sad, angry. So I went through the whole emotional
yeah,
cycle of all of it. But you know what? The blessing was first of all, I had to be thankful to God that I had parents that would have even allowed me to move back home. That's not everybody's story, right? So I could have
right.
easily been homeless with 2 kids making this decision. And maybe it would have been different if I would have been pushed with that. So thank God I had 2 parents that said yes. But then on top of that, I got a chance for my children to get a great relationship with their grandparents. I mean, they're there with them every day in and day out. We're a very tight knit family anyway. So giving my children that opportunity was such a blessing. And on top of that, I was able to be there with my parents, not knowing their health futures, right? My dad ended up needing to get quadruple bypass surgery at some point, and then my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And so you can
Wow.
look at it and be like, oh, this is a really bad thing. But then you have to thank God that, like, I was the one that he chose to get back into the home to be there with my parents and I've never moved out. So funny story, I'm still living with my parents. My son is graduating and will be going to college in the fall. My daughter is a teacher here in Des Moines Public Schools District and I'm still with my parents and I couldn't imagine it any other way. And I'm with them now because honestly, it's just worked really well for us. And with the way the economy is, and entrepreneurs aren't rolling in the dough, all of us. So it really
Right.
helps
Right.
that I'm at home with them. And it's a benefit, right? I'm able to be with them. They're able to be with me.
Yeah.
They were the best babysitters I could ever have in my mom. And she was there to help me when I was sick. I went through my own health stuff. They were there. So this thing that seemed like a curse ended up really being a true blessing and has blessed me to this day.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's amazing. Right,
Yes.
because we have these challenges and we have these moments where we're questioning ourselves, questioning the
Yes.
situation, and to make the choice, do what is needed to provide or have stability,
Mhm.
and continue to pursue the dream. Um, I think that's one of the beautiful things is we never know what's coming next or where this decision might lead. And I find it is most often the hardest things that we do, the
Mhm.
hardest choices we make, the
Yes.
ones that we really struggle with, as you
Mhm.
struggled with it, and being in tears and crying through it. And it's like, what? Um, And then those almost always blossom into something that was beautiful, something that was deeper connection,
Yes.
learning, um, giving us the tools we need to grow,
Hmm.
to survive, to build, that we would have never had if we
Yeah.
hadn't gone through what we go through. And so that is just really just cool. I
Yes.
thank you for your transparency and being able to share that, because
Oh
we
yeah.
have this idea in society. We look at, anybody in business, and
Hmm.
we just assume that if they are showing up and being in the spotlight in any way, shape, or form,
Right.
if their business is successful, if they're making a living, that
Mhm.
it was easy.
Right.
They just waltzed in and it was no big deal, because
Yes.
that's what gets shown.
Hmm.
And we don't always talk about the real brass tacks and the real journeys that we go on to get where we were, um, that were struggles and
Yes.
led to beauty. And I just
Hmm.
appreciate you sharing that, because I think that's the truth. That's the reality.
It
Reality.
is.
Everybody has to go through that.
They
Um,
do.
you say, you talk about education. I can hear your passion for that.
Yes.
And tell me about um, what you see and how you are continue to educate. I hear that education is part of the uh, Experience magazine.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. Talk to me about educating people. What does that mean for you? What is your goal or desire in that?
Yeah, I mean, being an educator, what I really struggled with was, and sometimes we all go through this as we're in our journeys and we're living out purpose, was I seen education for me as being the teacher, the principal, the instructional leader, then the superintendent. I had this trajectory of where I was going to educate forever and I was going to impact young people's lives, for as long as I could. And that's kind of the direction of education that I was going in. It didn't hit me till really about a year ago as I'm trying different things now. As entrepreneurs, I was trying to still get jobs in education. I was like, I'm going to go back to the school system. I'm going to change it. I'm going to make it great. I ended up serving on the school board for 5 years, and then after being done with that, I wanted to really get back in the educational realm, and working on my doctorate in education right now. So, like, education is my thing. But what it dawned on me was, and as these are more conversations with God, it's like, but you are educating people. Like, go back and look at what you do in your magazine, and let's see how you educate. And then I looked and I'm like, we're giving people health information. We're informing people about public affairs. We're educating people about arts and culture. We're educating people just around education in general. And so what I've taken on the title now is that I'm an educator. I'm a lifelong educator. It might not be that I'm in the classroom doing that work that I love, but I'm taking some of the issues that have really impacted my life and I'm educating people on them. Health is super important to me, and I've had my own health problems and I've had to educate myself along the way. So
Mhm.
I want to educate people. So now when you see the publication, you're going to see Alzheimer's Association, American Heart Association, you're going to see the Des Moines Arts Center, Des Moines Performing Arts, and you're going to see Des Moines Public Schools, and you're just going to see all these variety of places where we can educate. So now I proudly take on the title of educator, but I'm doing it from the standpoint of, I think, what God really purposed me to do, which is to educate people in the manner that I am. It didn't mean that I needed to be in a classroom. Now I'm educating a wider audience, and I'm really excited about that piece.
That is cool. That is so wonderful. I appreciate that. And Dwana, what I hear in that is um, the wider audience.
Yeah.
And also, um, in your magazine, you talked about doing this because people of color were not represented in the
Mm-hmm.
publications in and around Des Moines, Iowa, and you wanted to also impact that. And I
Right.
want to kind of delve into that. We're going to move to a break here, but
Perfect.
when we come back, I would like to talk about how what you do spotlights and shows more
Mhm.
people of color uh, and what that impact means for the community. So we are going to move to a break. My guest today is Dwana Bradley, owner of the Iowa Urban Experience. You can find her on Facebook at Urban Experience Magazine. I'm your host, Christine Clark. Follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Sunglow Transformation and Christine Clark. When we come back, what does educating mean when we talk about it as far as showing up in society? So we'll cover that. Plus, your life forging tip is yet to come. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to Forging a Life. I'm your host, Christine Clark. My guest today is Dwana Bradley with the Iowa Urban Experience. And we've been talking about, educating the public, educated on a larger scale, taking education from something that's tied to schools, to our, K through 12 or college education, and keeping it boxed in the with teachers and staff within our schools. But what does it mean when we take education further afield and educate a broader spectrum of people? Dwana, you've made that transition from being a teacher to now educating the local society with your magazine.
Mhm.
And my thought is, when you think about your broader audience, who is your who are you educating now?
Yeah, I hope I'm educating, everyone. I mean, rather you're a person of color or not. I mean, having information in there from the American Heart Association talking about signs of stroke or heart health and how to be able to make things better or coming back from after having a heart attack or signs to look for. It just happens to be that some of these things that I'm educating people are the things that impact community of colors the most. I think about having parents who are aging and having the Alzheimer's Association of Iowa in our magazine and talking about signs to look for dementia, being mindful of your elders' brain health, doing some things when you think they might be going down that path of dementia or early stages. There's information in the publication to see that. If you want to know where, the what's going on at our local art center here with Des Moines Art Center, you can see things in the magazine about that. If you want to go catch a Broadway show at Des Moines Performing Arts, you're able to see those kinds of things. And so for me, I hope that I'm educating the broader audience. I'm hoping that when people read the publication, they're getting something that helps them. And I think I'm so passionate about that because I've been in health situations, that I couldn't figure out. Blood clots after COVID, fibromyalgia, arthritis. Like I've experienced a whole gamut
Mm-hmm.
of issues along with, because of my family history, being more likely to could get diabetes or heart health or things of that sort. So I'm on my own education path as I'm trying to educate people to learn about, what does it look like to make sure that we're eating right, or how can we work out and not join a gym? You can do it by walking. It's a simple thing. Walk in your house, walk on your street. So I feel like I'm hoping that the audience that I'm looking to educate, which is everyone, that they're seeing something from that they can use for their own personal lives, and to be able to make a difference. Or people are reading it to help family members too, to be able to
Right. Yeah.
make some really great healthy decisions. And that's really for me what it's all about, is those healthy decisions.
Right. And you said something that really caught my attention,
Mhm.
that some of the health issues that you experienced, you said that they are show up in a higher percentage in
Mhm.
the Black and brown population.
Mhm.
And is that something you knew before you experienced it, or is that something you learned as you were going through managing your own health choices?
I think it was more that I learned along life, right? Experiencing family members who have gone through things like sharing with my dad having quadruple bypass, my
Right.
mom, my mom dealing with cancer, even myself having to have a partial hysterectomy early on in life because of the fact that there were things that were abnormal about, my pap smears and things. So I learned a lot as I had family members experience it. Your
Right.
your brain health, having a family member who deals with schizophrenia and bipolar. It's just like I've learned so many things as I've watched family members, folks who have had diabetes, folks who have had just allergies to things, not even being able to connect the dots. And then, like I've shared with myself, having those blood clots after COVID when it was probably 15 years prior that I had had my first one, and seeing that, like, that going through that process woke up blood clots for me, that it became very scary for me. And it really woke me up to say, you've got to start figuring out what this is, but also
Right.
not to keep the information to yourself. We're really good at trying to take care of ourselves and not tell anyone else.
Right.
I'm
Yeah. And especially when, it's like a health thing. It's like to openly talk about that.
yeah.
For you, I mean, you're sharing it in your magazine.
Mhm.
Tell me about what it means to have a publication that looks like the reader, that looks like, for Black and brown individuals to look at your magazine and see Black and brown faces versus another publication that might not reflect what they look like, that, they're not finding themselves in other publications. Um, Tell me about the impact of that.
Yeah, for me, it's an amazing impact. Look, I look through the magazine every month, looking at it as I'm going through and editing it, making sure everything looks good. And I flip through and I see this, and you'll see it, and I have the record to back it up. If you go to our website and see, you'll see that, every cover that we've had has been a person of color.
Right.
Rather, it's been a person from our local community, or how we've used it. We've always been really true to that. And that was important to me because I think representation matters. We don't have enough of it. I love the people out there and other places who do put people of color on their covers. I think it's great. But we have amazing people like myself and Dana James with Iowa Black News and Tar with Ola America. Like, people are doing this stuff, and a lot of them have been doing it for 20 plus years, of making sure that their communities are being represented. So I think it speaks volumes. And I think that people should know that, rather you're on the major person's publication or you're on any of our publications, you've arrived because we've been able to put you out
Right.
there to a wider audience. I think
Yeah.
sometimes we get mis kind of construed of like, oh, if I'm on this publication, I really made it. And if I'm here, it's okay. And I just kind of challenge people's thinking to say, no matter where you're at, you're getting some exposure. And
Right.
I would probably think that it was probably you weren't getting as much exposure before until you went to some of these media entities. So for me, being able to flip pages and see people who look like me, it's really amazing. And the thing is, we're making the commitment to stick to that.
Right.
I try my best to say that's where I want to stay. This publication is for everyone, but I want to make sure that when you pick up a publication, you're going to see someone on that front cover that looks like me. Like, that's my commitment. And the day that it gets to a point that doesn't happen is probably the day that the Lord's telling me it's probably time to stop. You've exhausted it. But
Right.
there's so many
Yeah.
stories to tell. I don't think I'll ever
Absolutely.
exhaust this. That's the beautiful thing, is
Right.
I love to tell the stories of everyday people. If you're the CEO, if you're the person who cleans up the place, if you're whoever you are, it doesn't matter, because we all have these amazing stories that no one would know if we don't elevate them. And so I try to search out that piece. But yeah, seeing myself in a publication is amazing. And I was able to even do a graduation nod to my son, and to see the look on his face when I handed him the May edition and said, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you I'm really proud of you." And he was like, "You put me in the magazine?" Like, it was really cool
Yeah.
to see his response. And I'm like, yeah, I can, because that's the power of the media. You're able to tell
Right.
some
right.
pretty amazing stories. So I
And
hope that
I
people get the same
love,
feeling.
yeah. And I love what you said about having your face in a publication
Yeah.
because that's always been huge.
Hmm.
That's all, no matter who it is or what the publication is, getting in print
Yeah.
was a big mojo.
Hmm.
Um, I remember years ago at the Iowa State Fair, I happened to decide to throw chickens. They were rubber chickens, but it was a
Hmm.
rubber chicken throw, right? It was just something fun to
Yeah.
do. And I did it. And I remember the gal coming by and, getting my name and asking me where I was from. And it's like, yeah, okay, fine. She did that with everybody, right? They're recording. Well, she
Hmm.
was also taking pictures.
Hmm.
And my picture got in the Des Moines Register.
Yeah.
It got picked up by my local paper in the
Hmm.
suburbs. And so everybody got to see me with a
Hmm.
backswing and a rubber chicken. And I got so many people that cut that out and saved it to and sent
Yeah.
it to me, right? And so it was a big thing. And what I hear with your publication is that you're going to give and you continue to give and have given people the opportunity to be in print for their
Hmm.
story to be seen. And yes, it might not be a bigger publication, but the bigger publication isn't necessarily going to pick them up or tell their story. And I love this grassroots, just telling everybody's story and with a dedication to have more people of color, more ethnicity
Yeah.
shown in print
Yeah.
because it's necessary, it's needed. And I know that there's a lot of work and energy and going on to for DEI in
Mhm.
every in a lot of big companies and
Right.
now publications are now um, seeing that that's a significant thing to do,
Mhm.
that we need to do this to get our check mark for being
Right.
good. And so there is more variety in the
Mhm.
faces and the stories that are being told. And yet, without that push, without that mandate, it might not have happened. And what
Yeah.
I see the difference between the publications that are doing it because DEI is popular now
Mhm.
is that you're doing it from a centered place of authenticity.
Yeah.
Um, am I just, you know,
Yeah.
am I landing or
You are really landing in the right spot. And I think it's really important to know. And I tell people this, like, I've been doing this since 2015. And I always say this and mean it. I'm not looking for accolades and awards, but what happened is kind of post George Floyd, now we're getting into this thing of like the world is woken up after we've been
yeah.
telling these stories for years that this is the reality that we live in. And now it's all of a sudden when we were quiet and glued to our TV screens or having to stay in the house, we've all of a sudden got this epiphany that, oh my goodness, people are being treated this way. Well, it's happened over 400 years ago. That's a whole nother topic, but it's been this way. And so now what we're doing is, and in our state, we're in a little funny place now because DEI is starting to even go away a little bit. So what we're doing now is
Mhm.
we've made this push to tell people we want to include everyone, we want to do this. Then we started giving everybody awards every time they would include somebody of color or do something inclusive or whatever. Then we got these awards. Now we're telling people, oh, but you don't have to do that anymore. Well, I love my space because I don't need them to tell me to do it or not do it. I don't need an award from them or not, because I'm going to continue to tell the stories, because there is going to be a time, unfortunately, here in our state, people don't want to hear those things. Well, no one can tell me how I can tell or tell the story. No one can tell me if I can talk about history or not. Nothing's stopping me from doing those things. And so we have places now where they're really trying to be inclusive and do these things. But the challenging part for what they do is, I'll say it best, is like, we're not normally their audience anyway. So what they're doing is they're including you all, but like you're still not their target audience anyway. So I'm grappling with, I get it, of wanting to share the stories, but when I'm not your target audience, it's not who I'm going to focus on. Then what do we have? Do we have the one-time story that makes us look really good and tells our story to a wider audience? But then at some point we go away, or it's the next person's story, or it's something else. So
Right,
I've
right.
struggled just being in that media space of like, I love working with all of these different media outlets. And I'm not talking about the media outlets that work with me. We look like me. We work very well and support each other really well. But it's really challenging when you're kind of going, oh, okay, you do this and great, you made it there. But then what happens when that's not even the audience that they're truly trying to reach? Does it even help you? Has it increased your sales? Has it done something more for you? Or is it just the shiny token that you get to say, we got you on the front cover? And so I'm not trying to start anything with all of that, but I just know for me, I'm just very transparent. These are the things that I struggle with when I'm at home by myself, talking through and having these conversations with members of my family or my friends. It's like, so what do we really get when that happens? And so, I get it. We all want to be inclusive. I'm all for it, all day, every day. But it's like, what does it really mean when we do that? And what does it mean to the person that's being elevated in that space?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to ask, if you could wave a magic wand and have all media
Mhm.
um, be responsive to the diversity that is present
Mhm.
in all of our communities, um, what would that look like
It
for
would look
you?
like them to stop chasing like the thing that is supposed to be the thing. Like we chase more politics, we chase more telling all of the bad news, we chase more plastering people of colors, pictures on there for something that's happened. Like we chase all of these things that I'm thinking like, so what does that do for you? It's really sad that we have become a space and a place in the United States of America. Is that what we thrive for? We thrive for the gossip. We thrive for the bad. We thrive for that. But then every once in a while, we'll tell our really good stories and then we'll make everyone feel good for a moment. And then we go right back to talking about the devastation or and so I think if I had my choice in the world, I challenge more media companies to like ask the question of, why does this matter? Well, a lot of it matters because of dollars and cents, right? If you don't do a certain thing and you
Right.
don't report a certain thing, you're not going to get the money. That's why I love my grassroots media. I'm not here trying to get money from higher ups to tell me how to tell the news and how to report it. And maybe this is because I don't have a journalistic background, that there may be more to all of
No,
it. But
no, yeah, I don't think it's the background at all. I think it's wanting to tell the stories and
yeah.
wanting to support communities, support the world
Mhm.
rather than go after the disruption and the dollars.
Yeah.
We're gonna, this is awesome, juicy, but we're gonna take a little break here.
Okay.
So I want to make sure we do that. My guest today is Dwana Bradley. She's the owner of the Iowa Urban Experience. You can find her on Facebook at Urban Experience Magazine. I'm your host, Christine Clark. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube, and Facebook at Sunglow Transformation and Christine Clark. And we're going to come back and we're going to talk about a little bit about why good advice is not always good. So, plus your life forging tip is to spark your liberated life is yet to come. Welcome back to Forging a Life. I'm your host, Christine Clark. My guest today is Dwana Bradley with the Iowa Urban Experience. Under the heading of not all advice is good advice, I want to share an understanding of gleaning information from others. So here is your life forging tip for today. In the process of forging a life, a willingness to learn from others is foundational. You can flow forward faster when you glean from other perspectives and experiences. Many of us, however, will capitulate our own wisdom to follow verbatim someone else's model or program. There is a false belief that another's methodology will transfer like a cookie cutter, that following someone else's clean path will negate error or failures. The truth is that you are unique. Your journey, your gift to the world is unique. You have elemental gifts that no one else has. There are processes we must all go through in order to achieve full circle success. To burn bright, only take those pieces of someone else's knowledge that are in alignment with who you are, that match your circumstance and resonate deeply. Above all else, trust yourself.
Mhm.
And remember, Coach Christine is here for you. If you want to unpack it, if you want to connect to your authentic power and ignite success on your terms, book a call and we'll have a conversation and move you forward. Dwana, one of the things I learned about you is that you are absolutely fearless in seeking information and advice from others. Tell me about discerning the information and the advice that comes back.
Oh yeah. So, as a business owner, we're all trying to figure out like how did you make it happen? How did you rise to the top? I want to be like that. I want the money. I want the fame. I want this. How did you do it? So I'm constantly seeking people out to figure this out. And I can remember years ago when I had first gotten started, I reached out to someone here in our area who had really, done some things. And I'm like, that's exactly what I want to be, which is what you tell yourself, right? That's
Right. Yeah.
exactly what I want to be right
Uh-huh.
there until you get in the room and you talk with them. And so I had this conversation and it's going really well. And I'm more just amazed that I'm even in the space with this person, right? And I'm just looking around and I'm in amazement. And then they start telling me some things about, well, this is what I did. And it was like, so I want you to go do this too. And what this too was to start charging subscription prices for the publication. And it was like, and then the advice to me was once you do it, then you come back and see me. And you know what? I was like, yeah. And in the moment, you're like, this person is telling me these things. This is how they did it. Yes. I'm like, yes, got it. I'm going to take care of that. And I'll be back to see you. And the more that I thought about it and the more that it lingered with me, I was like, but is that who I am? And so many people will say, oh my goodness, when they hear, you don't charge subscription rates, that's absolutely crazy. Well, you got to understand a little bit coming from my world and being in the situations in life where I've been in, no knock to anyone who does it. My values didn't line up with charging subscriptions. And I really had to take that and go, okay, but if you don't charge subscriptions, this person told you don't come back and see them until you get this done. But this is what you want, right? You want to be that person. And I had to tell myself in my conversations with God is like, no, I want to be who you want me to be. And so we don't charge a subscription rate for the publication. We do not. I just couldn't do it for me. Now someone's listening to me going, well, then how does she stay afloat if she's not charging any subscription? I just felt like, how dare I charge people for information, especially information that could potentially save their lives? I'm going to withhold it from them. I'm going to make them pay me something. And then people have told me over the years, well, have them donate. Okay, that sounds good. It just doesn't work for me. And so what I have found out with advice, love everyone who gives me advice, every mentor who has talked to me, people who I've watched from afar and they don't even know I'm watching them.
Right.
What I've learned is that it's got to work for you, because if you're working in a space and a place as an entrepreneur where you're doing things because you want to get to where that person got to, all of these folks that are giving you their self-help, giving them their coaching and everything, they're giving you their best of what they think it should be based off of the experience that they've had, or the 10,000 books they've read, or the trainings they've received. Like that's what they're doing. And you have to know that going into a space. is that's what they're giving you. So when I talk to people now and I give them advice or I say, look, this worked for me, but it might not work for you. I'm
Right.
not offended. I'm not hurt. I won't cut you off. You can still come back and see me, but this is just how I got there. And so for me, I didn't go back and see that person. And for me, we still don't charge a subscription rate, and I'm okay with it. But we've also created models that allow us to be able to fund and money comes in, and I can still give you that information without making you feel like you have to pay to get it. And so for me, advice is great. And I believe everyone's hearts are from the right place, but you've got to know yourself to know if it aligns up with the values and who you are, and if you feel comfortable in that space, going forward.
Right. Right. That's beautiful. I love all of that and can't wait to share that with more people and have this go out across the world with
Yes.
a podcast and on YouTube and things. Because that is, that's one thing that um, I end up working with clients on, Dwana,
Mm-hmm.
is that discerning
Yeah.
and being able to hear advice or um, see how somebody did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being like that when I was going to conferences, and anytime you're in like a webinar or something and you're just gleaning all this information, you're just trying to grab it all and
Mm-hmm.
go home and implement it. And the
Yeah.
truth is that most of it doesn't actually apply to your life.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to remember, just exactly like you said, it's what worked for them.
Yeah.
It's what their experience was. And yes, they want to share it, and for us to just take that piece that works for us or implement it. And the beauty of what you shared is that you knew that setting, having a subscription,
Mm-hmm.
paid and subscription was not in alignment with who you are.
Yeah.
And that opened the door to looking for other options.
Mm-hmm.
And now, because we had this conversation, I can, if I
Yes.
get a tell on you,
Yeah.
that you have sponsorships and you
Mm-hmm.
have these larger entities that will sponsor the entire publication
Yeah.
for that month.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can um, offer it and have it printed and shared
Right.
um, for free.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful piece
Mm-hmm.
because now you have the sponsorships. And my understanding is that you are building the relationships and people are sponsoring multiple times through
Mm-hmm.
multiple years. And,
Yeah.
this month is my month.
Mm-hmm.
And that, what I see in that is, you are financially stable because the publication is being paid for. You get to
Mm-hmm.
honor what's alignment for you, not charging the readership for that privilege. And also, you are building community and you are building a network and you are building relationships
Yeah.
that can carry the work further,
Mm-hmm.
that can have more reach, and
Yes.
just that whole beauty coming out of a choice by you to
Mm-hmm.
live in alignment with yourself. It's like
Yeah.
that's what I want people to know.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that's the most important. I mean, it's where we're at. It's been great. It works well. The model for the last 2 years has shifted to that sponsorship type model. We still do advertising, but it's worked really well. And like I said, people have said, "No, hold me for next year. I want this." And so that's been the beauty of it. But I can think, what would it have been like if I would have tried to do the subscription rate or try to do these different things when we've had issues that come up because we're small, with not getting printed on time or not getting a publication out at the right time. Like, there's
Right.
things that happen with a small team. So I'm excited that I just followed what I knew in my heart was right, and I encourage all entrepreneurs to do
Yeah.
that same thing.
Wow, we have blown through this hour, Dwana. This
Yes.
is great. We have just a little bit of time left till the end of the show. So tell me real quick a little
Yes.
bit about Juneteenth. You've taken
Yes.
that over.
Mhm.
You're doing celebrations all across Des Moines, Iowa. But if you could tell me just what is your message for all people, no matter what color you are, about Juneteenth.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I can
why?
definitely tell why we're doing it. I'll leave you with these three R's. It's what we're going to be focusing on for Iowa Juneteenth for the next 2 years. It's remember your history. We all have history, no matter what we look like, black, white, whomever you identify in. You have a history. Your family should share that. You guys should own your history, whether it's good or bad. Release the past. Some things about our history really upset us and make it hard for us to move forward. I'm encouraging individuals to let it go so that you can be your best self with the last R when you reshape your future. We've got to all work collectively and together to be able to reshape the future, but we learn from our history. We let go of those things that hurt us so we don't hold on to them so that we can create a better future, not only for ourselves, but for our families and future generations. So that's what you're going to see this year, encouraging people to go to iowajuneteenth.org. All one word. You can see all of the events that we're going to have, and we'd love to have you take part in the celebration with us.
Absolutely. Regardless of color, this is a celebration of Black culture, history,
Mhm.
and moving forward. So
Yes.
looking forward to it. Thank you so very much for being my
Mhm.
guest here, Dwana.
Yeah.
Every business endeavor, is an epic journey. We take one step at a time. Building any business, flying solo requires focus and tenacity.
Mhm.
As you seek support, remember to honor your unique journey and trust the process of becoming. My guest today was Dwana Bradley. Find her on Facebook at Urban Experience Magazine. I'm Christine Clark. You can find me at forgingalife.com, on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube at Sunglow Transformation and Christine Clark. Until next time, keep forging through. You will get there. You have been listening to Forging a Life with me, Christine Clark, igniting full circle success. Tune in every second and fourth Tuesday at 9 a.m. on Transformation Talk Radio for more life forging tips to spark your liberated, energized, and profoundly satisfying life. As each of us forge our unique destiny, we light the way for others, igniting world healing transformation. It's never been a question of, do you have what it takes? It's only, are you willing to try? Schedule a complimentary personal clarity session. Visit forgingalife.com. That's forgingalife.com.